Conversations for change, because the world is ready. Well, I am super excited that you are here, Michael. And Michael Ashby is a friend of mine who is, I don't even really know how to describe you, an amazing channeler, somebody who has brought in some of the most powerful energy that I've ever experienced working with a channel. And particularly when we work together in group session. And just somebody who I truly admire. I guess what I'd say about you is what I admire about you the most is your understatedness and your groundedness and your willingness to simply get out of the way and let spirit have its way with you.
Well, thank you, Becky.
Oh, you're quite welcome. And I thought we'd start today talking about trees, because that's something we're both very passionately excited about. And then if we get time, we can go into some other conversations about some other things that you're engaged with that I find quite fascinating.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it.
So, how about if we start by you giving us a little bit of background about your relationship with the trees and how you see them, like what kind of relationships they have with each other, that kind of thing. Can you start there?
Yes. Well, it all started way back. No, not so far back. Maybe a year ago. I'm out in my backyard. There's a huge oak tree, and I decided that I knew that there was such a thing as communicating with trees and plants. I had never done it. And I thought, well, okay, let's just give this a try. So I put my hands on this big oak tree and put my forehead up against the bark, and I just kind of tuned in. And before long, this didn't happen the first time, but before long, I uh, began to see an eye in the bark. I mean, it was as if my eyes were, I was looking through my eyes, even though they were closed. And I could see the bark of the tree, and I could see an eye just right there in front of me, staring at me. And that kind of took me back, and I thought, okay, this must be Mr. Tree, right? So I just started tuning in and listening, and I'm asking questions. And I tried to do it. This was after I had become a channel, after I had started channeling, and I sort of kind of got into my channeling groove, my conduit, as we say. And I started asking mental questions. And pretty soon I started to hear, I don't really hear words. I sort of get a feeling, and I just sort of know what the feelings are supposed to be. And then my brain sort of fits the right words around those feelings and sort of comes out as a conversation. So that's really how it started, just with a tree in my backyard.
Wow. And when you say you saw the eye in the bark, was it like shaped like a human eye?
It was shaped just like a human eye, except it was the eyelid, of course, looked like bark, and there was bark all around it. I guess there was no white to the eye. Yeah, it really didn't look human, but it looked exactly like an eye. It was shaped, with an
Yeah.
eyeball and an eyelid, and just looking at me casually, calmly, like, okay, here we are. What do you want?
That's wild. Wow. Yeah, and I know just what you mean. As a channel myself, that experience of, I think of it as we get thought constructs that just come in, and then sort of our brain figures out how to put it all together. And that's a challenging way to channel, but it is absolutely the way a lot of us do it. And eventually, sometimes we actually do have words and sentences and things like that come to us ahead of time. But quite often for me, it's a knowing. And then my job is to get sort of into the feeling of the knowing and let it speak through me.
Yes, it is just a knowing. And as you say, it is challenging because, in my case, my brain tries to fit words around these feelings. And so it sounds like me. The words that come out of my mouth sound like me. So I always have this doubt, in the back of my mind, is it, is the tree really speaking to me, or am I just making this up? Am I creating, a fictitious, dialogue with myself, But I've come to trust what I get, and I just try to keep myself as neutral as possible, and I try to keep myself right there in the center. I don't veer one side or the other, and just let the feelings flow. And I try specifically not to um, try and steer the conversation one way or the other. Just stay as neutral as possible.
Right. That makes perfect sense. And I think also a part of that is we begin to realize, and I have to say, having seen some of your channeled messages, in your mind, they might sound like you because it's your voice, but the things they say are very specific to them. They don't sound like Michael telling me something.
Right. And when I practice here at home, I'll go back there in a private area and practice channeling, and I will record myself. And very often I play back these recordings, and even to me, it does not sound like me. In the moment, it does sound like me, because I'm saying the words physically. So I have that familiarity with the words themselves. But when I play it back, I can sort of sense and feel the meaning that was intended in those words, and oftentimes does not sound anything like me, even though the words are mine. So that's another reason why I begin to trust, what I get.
Yeah. Yeah. And I totally get that. And of course, we've had moments, I've totally been with you when you've had moments where you're doing trance channeling and later you don't even remember what you said. So it's very clear. In fact, a couple of times you didn't even know you had said anything. So that was pretty clear that it was not Michael's conscious mind in charge at that point.
Yeah, that was surprising for me because, yeah, I've said some things in group meetings, and usually I remember speaking, but as soon as I'm done speaking, I can't remember what it is I just said, and people have to repeat it back to me, or I have to go back and listen to the recording. Yeah, it's very strange. I don't know where I go. I don't think I go anywhere. I mean, I hear myself speaking, but I just can't remember it immediately after the fact.
Right, right. Well, your conscious mind has taken leave somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
So getting back to the trees, so you first started talking to this tree in your backyard, um, and then how did that progress to where you are now?
Okay. Well, I would go out there, often in the backyard and talk to the trees. And there is a jogging trail just down the street from my house. It goes around this huge stormwater basin that they built here in the suburbs. And it is a very tranquil place. They call it a nature area, and it's kind of a lovely little place. It's full of water, trees all around. There's like a 5 mile path all the way around. So this is one of the reasons I'm in this house that I'm in. It's close to this trail, and I can go over here every day. I go early in the morning, when it's cool, and there is a grove of trees. Well, there are lots of trees, but there's a grove of trees by this little playground park. And it's just the nicest little grouping of trees. Every time I go in there, I just feel better, somehow. And so one day I decided, look, I'm going to maybe try and talk to one of these trees. And this was very shortly after I had spoken to the tree in the backyard. And so I just picked one that was right there beside the trail, and I laid my hands on, and I just started tuning in, and pretty soon I could hear some, some feelings coming back towards me, and that progressed into conversations. And you were talking about sometimes you might get an actual word or a new thing coming into your brain, and I was trying to get the tree to tell me his name. I know he must have a name, and I would prefer to address him with some kind of a name, instead of just tree number one or tree number two, you know. So I try to get the name, and I'm not really getting much. And I say, okay, stop. Can you concentrate on just the first syllable of your name? What's the sound of the first syllable? And I tune in and I concentrate and I try to hear the sound. In this case, this tree, I just kept hearing kind of an L sound, the EL sound, L something. And so I said, okay, now can you kind of tune in on the second syllable? And that one really kind of threw me. It just came out like I wasn't really getting much of anything. So I just decided that what I would do is come up with a name myself and then ask the tree, is this okay with you? So he had already started with L, so I just tacked on L Taff because that's kind of a syllable that was already in my head. And I said, is this agreeable with you? And he said, oh yeah, that's fine. You can call me that. That's good. So, and then there's another tree that I tried to get his name, and I struggled with it. I just couldn't get it, and so finally I'm decided I need to move on with my walk, and I'm walking away, and all of a sudden I hear a name, just a clear name, pop into my head. So it was Frank, and so I turned around and I said, "Okay, Frank, was that you?" And he said, "Yeah, Frank's a good name." And I said, "Okay, well, you're Frank now," and it just fits perfectly with that tree.
That's wonderful. It's like, okay, stop trying and give up, would you?
Yes, that's exactly it. I just stopped trying and let it go, and that's when it popped in.
That's so funny. And so exactly how it always works, right?
Yeah, yes.
So you have Eltaf and Frank.
Yes, and the trees in the backyard, I eventually named them. This was early on. I was still trying to get the actual name, and I came up with Bartro for this tree. And this tree it's kind of a split tree, about 2 or 3 feet up from the ground. It splits into two main trunks. And so I got this crazy idea, are there two beings inside this tree? Maybe, I don't know how it works. So I asked, are there two of you here? And I heard a clear answer, yes. I get yes and no answers pretty, consciously. And I heard a clear yes. And so I said, well, let's explore this. Do you guys have a male and a female of your species? And I heard clear yes. Okay, well, is this other being that's in the tree a male or a female? And he said, oh, well, she's a male, she's a female, and I'm a male. I said, well, that's interesting. You're a male and a female in this same conjoined tree. And I just thought that was fascinating. And then I think I asked some kind of a question like, well, is this some similar to, the twin flame or something like that? And he said, well, not really, but you can think of that way if you want to, but that's not really the way it works with us. So, they have some sort of a relationship, but it's, I guess, not what we would think of as humans, male and female.
Right, right. That's fascinating. And and then from there you began to have experiences where you could talk to them about how they experience consciousness. Is that right?
Yes. Well, after I communicated with Eltath and Frank, they're both over there in that little grove of trees. And so every morning, that's where I like to go first. I like to walk through there. And whenever I'm just down, when I get up and I'm in sort of a ugly mood or whatever in the morning, I walk through that grove of trees and they will just brighten my day. And this feeling of love and joy will just soak into my heart. And I know it's coming from the trees. I can feel it. And so I started just sort of communing in my head, well, oh, thank you for this, and, you know, just kind of speaking general things, thank
Hmm.
you for this. And I appreciate this. And I thank you for being here and grounding me. And it's got to be a regular conversation with this whole group. And they try to explain the fact that they are a community. They communicate with each other. They have there's the mycelial network that connects all of the trees together. I suppose you could say it extends all over the earth. Maybe not physically, but they have their network. They have a grid. That is one word that I heard one time. They have a grid, a network of their own, the
Hmm.
trees, and they communicate with each other, and so they have this keen sense of community. And they were telling me that's one reason that they are here. These particular trees in this grove, I understand they decided they were able to choose the place where they wanted to incarnate here on this earth, physical earth. And they chose this spot here in the suburbs of Houston because they knew that they would have more opportunities for having interactions with humans because they are here.
Huh.
I have asked them several times about, what is your path? Are you, oh, I know I'm getting off the path here, but I need to say this real quick. I was, I was curious about, you know, did you come here to further your development? Are you here to be our teachers? Are you just, one of my
Right.
first questions was, which was a very naive and stupid question, and I regretted it as soon as I said it. I said, "Are you guys here as punishment? Are you kind of making up for something?" And they said, "No, no, no, it's nothing like that." But then I quickly added, "But if we can make it here on Earth, we can make it here anywhere." And I thought that was just so funny. Reminded me of that line about New York City. If you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere.
Right. Right.
If they can make it on Earth, they can make it anywhere. But they have told me, explained to me, and this has come over multiple conversations with them,
Hmm.
that they chose to incarnate here so that they could have interactions with humans, and they have this keen sense of community and oneness, and they help each other. If one tree is struggling, they will shift resources around from tree to tree, to help everyone survive and thrive. And that's what they're here to help teach humans, to
Mm.
bring to us this idea of community and oneness. And we're going through this big shift in consciousness with humanity, and they are here specifically to, their path is to help show us what the path of oneness looks like and how we can work ourselves toward unity with one another, not only with one another, but also with all of the other beings that inhabit this earth. I mean, there are untold trillions of beings on this earth, and we are here to become one with all of them.
That's a powerful lesson.
It is.
Well, I guess if anybody was going to teach it, the trees would be a really good choice.
Yes.
Yeah, because they certainly stand in their own sovereignty, each of them.
Yes, they do.
And yet they also, like you said, I mean, we're only just beginning to understand how much they actually help each other. The science is just coming in on that.
Yeah, the science is just now getting there, and they're uncovering, discovering these amazing things about the network of the trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've even seen articles and research showing how trees will keep a stump alive
Yes. Yeah,
in
you can
the
never
forest.
tell when you see a tree that's fallen down or is cut down. Don't ever assume that it's dead because quite often that tree is alive and thriving. There's a lot of it under the ground you can't see.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he's still there. He's still still living.
It makes me think of Oswald West. You know, Oswald West is a forest up in the northwest coast of Oregon, where it actually is still a forest like the forests used to be here. It's never been cut. Um, and there are these Alaskan spruce trees. They fall over and their tops get cut off in the wind sometimes. But you can also see all along the forest floor these really huge trees, from the coastal redwood trees to the spruce trees to the all these different conifers, that they literally sprout, like they'll fall down. There'll be this log, a huge log in the forest, and then out of it are coming all these baby trees.
Yeah, yeah.
And they just it's incredible. And it's so, I love that forest. I wish I lived a little closer to it. I'd spend more time there. But it's really phenomenal.
Yeah, the trees are amazing. They really are.
Yeah. And so their whole message about this oneness really is about us learning to stand on our own 2 feet, but also to take care of each other.
Yes, take care of each other. Fully know within ourselves that we aren't individual beings. I mean, we are individual beings, but we are also part of all that is, and it is our path, all beings' path to, form this oneness with each other. We know, and we're all learning, and hopefully, all more and more of us will learn this, that when we uh, when we help another being, another human, or even another plant or an animal or anything, that we're actually helping ourselves. I mean, we are helping the oneness of all. We do it to them, we do it to ourselves. And by that same token, if we injure another being or another a person, another tree, whatever, we are just injuring ourselves. So it is behooving unto us to heed the lessons that they are trying to teach us, that we are our own masters, and it is vitally important that we learn this and learn it now,
Mm-hmm.
especially with all of the things going on the earth today with humans and with Mother Earth as well. I mean, all of the things that we have done to the earth, digging into the ground to dig out minerals and to drill deep into the ground and suck out all of the oil and gas and all of this. And we are just ravaging our dear Mother Earth, and
Yeah.
we know that we can't keep doing that. It's going to have to come to an end. And so part of the chaos that we're facing is not only human, economic chaos, it's going to be chaos with the earth herself. And we're going to have to face that, but we will get through it. I'm positive about that.
Yeah, interesting. Me too. And what you're really talking about is the extraction culture, that
Yeah.
we've lived in this way of being that saw everything else as things,
Yes.
and we
As
got lost.
resources.
Yeah, we got lost on that path. That there was a time when we all knew that everything is alive and that everything feels, and that all of us have that capacity to share in those feelings.
Yeah.
And I think it's fascinating to me that the trees are really talking about that as what they're here to teach us. Sounds like that's what you're saying.
Yes, they have said that in no uncertain terms. I have, because I started asking about why these particular trees are in this particular spot. And they said, well, trees out in the wilderness don't have very much of a chance to have human interaction. I mean, there are other plants and there are other animals and such that that they interact with, but not much with humans. But these particular trees chose to be near humans so that they would have the chance to come into contact with them and hopefully start these conversations like I'm having with them, and to start
Mm.
spreading this message of oneness. That's why they're here.
That's a beautiful thought that the trees that are around us in our parks, in our cities, in our houses have chosen these places to be. Well,
Yeah.
it correlates too, though, with the idea that we all have chosen to be here,
Yes.
which certainly I ascribe to that belief. It's taken me a lifetime to get here, but I do get it. Um, and that our challenges are the challenges we've chosen for the purpose of our own expansion and growth in consciousness. Um,
Yes.
but we have to take that on, right? We have to take on the whole thing of being in the place of wanting to grow, to learn, to become more.
Yes. Yes, that is our path. The trees have their path. Actually, I have been told that, and no one has to take my word for this, but I have been told that the beings that inhabit the trees are actually a very ancient and very evolved race of beings. They have a name. They're called the Aldebaran, and they come from a planet, I don't know, some place really far across the galaxy. And they chose to come here. They volunteered to come here to be our guides and teachers. I mean, they've been here from the very beginning, from when Mother Earth was beginning to be a symbol, let's say, created, and they were here long before humans were around, because that is their contribution. They are walking their path on the journey of return to soul, return to source. And so they
Mm-hmm.
are walking their path, as we will walk ours on our journey of return. So
Right.
it's a
I suppose
continuous cycle.
yeah, I mean, I suppose you could say we all are.
We all are. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely, we are.
yeah. That's beautiful. And it makes sense to me because you can feel they have such a groundedness and they're so stable in their being. At least that's my experience of them. Um, and I have a lot of
Yes,
these around me that just um, they just hold this energy of calm is the way it feels.
yes,
But they also
calmness
have a
and
great
peace.
joy.
But it's interesting you bring up about the groundedness, because one of the women in our channeling group has done some work with me. I have been wanting to maybe increase my awareness. I feel like I should be more aware than I am.
I
And
guess
so
we all think that.
yeah, we all do. I'm sure we do. And so we had a little session together. And so she gave me this little seed. And what the seed is, she told me that my grounding, the reason that my awareness may not be what I would like it to be is because I'm often fairly ungrounded, when I'm doing this work. And so she said that, and she did this quite independently of me saying this, that my grounding comes from the trees, come from walking in nature. She said, you need to go back to the trees, which I do anyway, and that's where you get your groundedness. That is your base. Go back there, uh, and when you come home, and whenever you're doing your channeling, or whenever you need this extra boost, you call on that grounding that you get from the trees, and that will boost you back into your channel, where you need to be.
Oh, interesting. And have you tried that? Does it work for you?
Yes, it does. I actually tried that, and I felt a little clearer. I mean, I'm still not where I would like to be. I probably never will be, but it does seem to get a little easier. I can almost see the individual streams, in my channel, if I can say it that way. It's not really a visual, but I can kind of feel these individual streams in my channel, and it makes me feel like I'm a little bit better connected.
Right, right. Well, that sounds exactly like it's working.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So now the other thing that we had talked about um, before we planned to talk together today was this other being who's come into your experience just recently in the work that you're doing as a channel. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I can. Actually, about 2 years ago, back when I was just starting out on my what you might call my true spiritual awakening. I mean, I think I've been pretty awake and aware most of my life. I just didn't really know it and I didn't practice it. But, about 2 years ago, I started to come out and I met a number of people and went through some classes, spiritual classes, and learned how to do channeling and such. And about the same time, I became aware of this group called Namas University.
Mm-hmm.
And they have this whole series of podcasts. And so I started listening. And the very first one, the title of it, you'll laugh. The very title of the very first podcast is First Message to the People of Earth. I mean, it sounds like a science fiction movie, right?
That is funny. Yeah.
So he's talking, and this being is his name, his title, I should say, clarify. His title is the Sanat Kumara, the Sanat Sanat Kumara, Kumara, and that's not his name. That is his title. I have since learned what his actual soul name is, and I don't think he would mind if I say it. He has spoken it out loud many times, but his soul name is Sorkas, Sork apostrophe AAS. That's his name, and his title that he holds here on Earth, he was invited to be here on Earth to hold the office of, he calls himself the COO, the Chief Operating Officer of Earth, and but he was invited to be here by the soul that ensouls the Earth herself. The Earth has a soul, just like every being. He's a being just like we are, and we
Yeah.
are all co-equal. So this being's name is Zoncrete. That's the being that ensouls the Earth, and so Zoncrete invited Sorkas to come here to be this. He's actually the chief spiritual officer for Earth, and he's been here for about 19 million years, he says. And
Did you
the
say
story
19 million years?
19 million years. If you listen to his first podcast, he says that he is an advanced diva being who came here from Venus, and he came here to be the chief spiritual leader of the earth. And his function, his role is to guide us into, well, actually, I don't know how much you want to get into the discussion about the shift and the ascension of humanity and all that is currently going on the earth. But, there is a whole story that leads up to that, which goes back tens of thousands of years. I mean, we're talking back to before Atlantis. And, so for these past 12,000 years, since the fall of Atlantis, Earth has been in firmly in the grips of the dark forces, dark energy, dark beings
Yeah.
who,
Darkness, we'll just say.
darkness. Yeah. Okay. Yes. And they have been firmly in control. I mean, many institutions that we think of as bedrocks are actually just institutions formed to control humanity. I mean, I hate to say it, but some of the major religions are simply tools of the dark forces banking institutions and huge corporations. All of these are just tools that the dark forces use to try and keep humanity enslaved, and that's what they use the word enslaved. um,
Well,
so
and can I just say, I don't want to interrupt your flow here, but
okay.
to me, that particularly if we're talking about banking and governments and all of those sort of organizations, um, it's becoming more and more clear as
Yes.
the decades in my life go by. I mean, I've been aware of that for several decades now, but what I'm saying is that now I feel as if there's so much evidence coming out that's making it obvious just how much of what's going on is about control and enslavement.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I have been guilty of being totally blinded by the lies and by the things they tell us, most of my life. Even though I felt like I was more or less awake, I was still blinded by the lies, that they tell us. And it's only within the last few years that I have begun to see, yes, those were lies, and they are not telling us the truth. And this is just all a ruse to keep us under their control.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I think we have to say probably all of us have because we get born
yeah.
into this culture.
Yes, it's been the system. When I first started learning some of these truths, I was quite angry. I was angry at my parents. I was angry at the school system. I was angry at the leaders, church leaders, I was angry at everybody because it seemed like everybody lied to us.
Hmm.
I was told growing up in school in the 50s, well, this Earth is just a tiny little speck of dust of nothing in the far reaches of the galaxy, and it means nothing, and there's nothing else out there. And maybe one day we might spot some particle of life that proves there's life elsewhere. And all of this, that, and the other. And that there's here on the earth, there's only humans. We're the top of the food chain, and we can reign over everybody and everything. We can kill the animals. We can chop down the trees. We can dam up the rivers. We can pump the oil out of the ground. We can do all of this without repercussion because we are the masters. We are the kings.
Right.
And
We're the
and
only
it's
ones who are sentient. Everybody else is nonsense.
yes. Everybody else is a victim, is a worthy tool for us to use and discard and throw away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's a
so the
really
earth,
sad idea
yeah,
when you come to think about it because I can remember actually, and this is a little bit off topic, but not really, that there was a time in my life as a young person where there were people in my world who actually thought this way about animals. And I mean, it's bad enough people have thought this way about plants forever, but like your dog, right? Like that the dog is not got a soul, or the dog doesn't have feelings, or the dog, right? It's
exactly. Yes.
it's just the stupid dog. And
Yeah.
I've had a lot of dogs in my life, and I have to tell you, none of them are stupid. Not one of them was ever stupid. They
That's
were really
right.
smart and beautiful and wonderful and clever, and they dream. And yeah,
Yes. Yes.
so and I remember when the first book came out about animals dreaming, and it was such a big deal, right? And to me, it was just like, well, have you never had a dog? I mean, I watch my dog dream every day. He takes a nap and he's barking and running in his sleep.
Yeah, I ran across a book back it must have been back in the 70s. It was called Kinship with All Life. And I love that book because the guy he sat down in his house. The ants were starting to come in to his house, and he just sat down on the floor, cross-legged, and he looked at this line of ants, and he just started talking to them. And he said, "Look, I know you guys have to live your lives, but this really is my house, and I'd really like to live here in peace. And maybe you guys can go find another place to live." And pretty soon they marched off and they left his house. he talked to the plants and all of the insects around his house. I mean, it was an amazing book. It opened my eyes, and it took me
Yeah.
a long time. It took me a long time to sort of reincorporate those ideas back into what I'm doing now. And talking to the trees and such as that.
Yeah. So, yeah. So essentially, this story from this being who's been here for 19 million years is that his job is the spiritual, like overseeing the spiritual development of
Yes,
and path of
yes.
the planet.
And there is a whole huge story. It's way too long and complicated and sorted to go into now, but I'll just briefly say that, I started out saying that the dark forces have been in control. And the good news is that this shift thing, this physical shift of the earth that started in 2012 and it's supposed to be completed by 2032. So this 20 years of shift, physical changes in the earth and spiritual changes within humanity and all beings on earth.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, as of okay, yeah, I'm going to have to skip over a lot of stuff here, but very briefly, as of 2024, I think towards between the middle and the end of 2024, the dark forces were finally, to a large degree, forced to leave. They were either destroyed and removed, or they were forced to leave and they are no longer present. Now they still have a lot of infected a lot of, shall we say, human entities who they are still carrying out these dark protocols, and that's what's still going on now with all the chaos we have going on now. But the main dark forces have by and large been defeated and gotten rid of. So finally, the Sanat Kumara can finally do his job, and he is leading us directly into our ascension as humanity, into go evolving from the 3D world into the 5D world. I am told that Earth is already vibrating in the vibration, the frequency of 5D. It's just a matter of all humans catching up with us, catching up with that, and
Mm-hmm.
coming into their true humanity and ascending into the human beings we were meant to be all along. You know, Earth herself, in the very beginning, was meant to be, she was created to be the spiritual university planet of this galaxy. That's
Oh,
the
wow.
reason. That's the reason she was here. And the fact that the dark forces were able to take over thousands of years ago kind of put, a roadblock in, and it just kind of put a monkey wrench in the whole works. And so, but now the beauty about being alive right now is that we are finally coming out of the darkness and we are going to be moving. I mean, this may sound like a lot of pie in the sky stuff, but we are going to be moving away from all the darkness that we have been experiencing and coming into our true full selves. And Earth has already become what they call a pulsar of light. As the dark forces were defeated and people that are in the light, call them light workers, or the Sanat Kumara likes to call them ambassadors of light. All the people like you and me and all the people we know in our groups, and all of the other groups all around the world are stepping
Mm-hmm.
up and doing this work in the light. And this is what is helping to aid in this shift of all of humanity towards our 5D destiny. So that's the reason the Sonic Kumar is here, is to lead us through this big shift uh, going forward.
Okay. So essentially his job then is giving us the tools and the information to become more and more able to stand in our highest and best versions of ourselves.
Yes, and that's why he created this thing called the Namas University, and he's
Oh,
he's going
yeah.
about. Yeah, he created Namas University.
Oh, that's right. You said the first podcast was him talking.
Yes. And what he has done is he has sort of walked into, he calls it a partial walk in of a human being. There is a German woman. Her name is Martina Violetta Jung. Her name is Jung, Young, like Carl Jung, but no relation. Anyway, she is his walk-in. So he's when he speaks, it is him speaking, but he is using her body, her voice, to say the words. So when you hear the podcasts, you will hear her voice.
Right.
But it is actually him speaking. He's not speaking through her. He is actually speaking, using her vocal cords, let us say.
Right, right. I understand. That's
Okay.
interesting to me. I guess if you had said this to me a couple of years ago, I would have, well, probably all of this would have made me go, Michael, really slow down.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah, me too.
but it's very interesting that what you just said, because actually, my husband does Kriya Yoga, which is a very specific form of yoga. It's what Yogananda brought to the West when he came here in the 1920s, when he came to the United States. And it's a very specific form of yogic teachings. And my husband is doing this all in his own way, like on his own path with books. He hasn't had a physical guru teacher. He's taken on teachers who have already passed as his teachers and works that way. But one of the books that he has is a very huge, I think it's 600 pages. And it's a huge book that contains all of the teachings of all of these different masters and pathways through time, right? And so it's taken him several years to go through it. And one of the things he talks about is this particular teacher, that this man had actually wanted to teach this, and there wasn't anyone around to teach him, right? And so what he did was he actually asked for a master to come in to his own body. And then for like 40 years, he was this incredible teacher, and he taught all of these lessons and classes and did all of these things all over the world in the late 20th century. And then he stopped teaching. And when people would talk to him, he would say, "Oh yeah, that doesn't I don't do that anymore. That part of me isn't here anymore." And in the books he explains that it's because that master had agreed to be with him for a certain period of time, and then he left. So I that was another instance of somebody, having the experience of somebody who was actually not the person who was speaking, was who was speaking, right?
Yeah, I see. Yeah. It reminds me of the book, The Autobiography of a Yogi. Um,
Yeah,
is that
that
is
is
that the
Yogananda's
title? Yeah.
book. Yeah.
That's yeah, yeah, okay. Well, I've started reading it, and it's so fascinating. And I understand that that form of yoga, the original form of yoga, is actually the purest, most powerful form, and it has been adulterated and watered down so many times, especially here in the West,
Yes.
that
Yeah,
it's very helpful to go back to the original yoga as it was intended.
exactly. And that's exactly what my husband's been doing.
That's
Um,
wonderful.
and he's been at it now for it's going on 4 years. And he's had some amazing experiences. Um, and it is a really rigorous practice. It requires practice every day. And it's interesting. We're getting a little off topic here, but we're also listening to Osho's book, The Secret of the Golden Flowers. It's also called The Secret of Secrets. Um, and that's also a huge tome. I think it's 500 pages. I know
I've started it, but I haven't got very far yet.
it's a 50-hour audiobook, and I just adore it. And he also talks about this, that he is actually explaining I think, what the teachings of the Kriya Yoga really are, which is the moving of the light through the energy centers of the body. And it's a practice that you do every day. It's a form of meditation that takes you to a place where you actually go into real nothingness. And I know Karsten, my husband Karsten, has had that experience a couple of times, and it's profound. I've had it a couple of times in my life spontaneously, very briefly. I can't explain why, but I know it really knocks you out for a while. I mean, it's yeah,
I bet.
when you become everything and nothing all at once, it's pretty crazy. Um, so, and that is a part of this whole experience of us doing the inner work.
Yes.
So, so what
And
I
I think, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, what I understand, I think, is that this is where this is all leading.
Yes. I think I can kind of tie this together back to the original line. What Carson is doing, you said he's doing it on his own. He's doing the work himself within himself with his own higher guidance.
Yeah,
Okay. What the Sanat Kumara wants to teach in Namas University, in the past we've had gurus, let's say, come here. We've had Jesus come here, whose actual name was Yeshua, and we've had others. We've had Muhammad, and we've had Buddha, we've had others, but each time they came, they were just one voice, and their teachings were that they left behind were able to be twisted and skewed and adulterated after they left, so that they could be manipulated into these control mechanisms that we talked about.
right,
So now, what the Sana Kumara wants to do is, he said, we're doing things differently now. He said this in one of his podcasts. We're going to do things different now. We're doing it the right way. So he and all of these master teachers, they used to be called ascended masters, but
right,
they don't like that term really. They that puts them above us. And he said they are not above us. They are just like us. So they prefer to be called master teachers. And they are, all beings are the same, co-equal, from the creator down to the smallest particle in the universe. All beings are co-equal, none above the other. And it's been a mistake that the religions would tell people to put this being or entity up above them and put them on a pedestal and bow down and worship. No, that's not the way we need to go about doing these things, because they are not above us. They are equal to us. They just happen to be a couple of steps further down the path than we are, and they are looking back and giving us their advice and their teachings and some knowledge and instruction. So what they're doing at Namas University is, all of the master teachers, used to be ascended masters, are teaching through incarnate individuals in Namas University, but they, number one, they all give consistent messages. They're not giving a message of one kind over here and then a different message over there, and
mm-hmm,
everybody's
right,
trying to fit the two together. No, they're giving consistent messages every time they give messages, and they always confirm messages by at least two other people. So every message is received by at least three people, and it's confirmed that it is an accurate message. So we know that that is what was intended. It hasn't been, gotten out of balance or out of skew or misunderstood.
or
So,
misinterpreted, right,
or
right.
misinterpreted, right? So
That's a
that the
really
clear message, and if you listen to the podcasts, you will hear the same message over and over and over again. They kind of pound it into us. And the last thing I'll say is, the other thing he says, and this ties back to Karsten, he said that Sanat Kumar says the the most important thing he wants to get over to humans, the very primary, most important thing for us to learn, is to go inside and connect with our soul, our higher self, and listen to that, listen to our higher being self, That is our ultimate goal. That our higher being knows our path. It knows why we're here. It knows all the things that we signed up to do here and
Hmm.
what steps we need to take next. So no matter what we do, always check with your soul, your higher self, and let that be your one and only guide in life. You can listen to all these other lectures and messages from all of the masters, and that's great, and that's wonderful. We need that. But the final um, thing that you should listen to, the final arbiter of your knowledge, is your own higher self, because
Right.
we all come from the same source.
And I'm really glad you went there because to me, that ties back to the sort of my little the piece for me that has held everything together and always does, which is we are each sovereign beings. And
Yes,
as sovereign beings who are a piece of all that is God, in other words, it doesn't mean we are God and we go out and do things in the world to others or in any way like that. What it means is the God is within us. And that's what we've
yes,
been being told for eons by all of these master teachers or ascended masters or however you call them. And it makes so much sense to me. And it's also very interesting to me that that is really the message of when I think about the work we've been doing and the group that we are a part of, our light conduit, and all of the different things that we've gone through, the one consistent message that rings true and through me always is take it within, go within, seek the answer
yes,
within yourself. And I also want to say before I leave this whole conversation and topic that we've just covered, that is in part because we are channeling. We're even channeling our own higher self quite often. That's what we're doing. Um, and channeling, because it's become such a popular thing lately, um, and just in general because of the nature of it, is always moving through the filter that is us.
yes,
So I understand so well why a lot of people, including myself, don't spend a lot of time watching channeling on YouTube or on podcasts or other places. There are a few. Lee Harris is one I listen to, for example. But most of them I don't because there are a lot of channels, and there are a lot of channels who haven't done their inner work and cleaned up their filter.
yes. That is very true, and I have been told this, and yeah, and I as well, as well as you, I don't listen to a lot of channels. There are a few that, yeah, I enjoy listening to, and they have a good message. But there are a lot of them that I kind of question and I wonder, where they're channeling this information from, or else they're just really getting it really skewed in their mind.
Right.
Uh,
Well, because if you haven't done your inner work and you aren't being really conscious about how you operate in the world, are you committed to the highest and best for all in all outcomes? Or do you still have a really serious ego game going on? There are a lot of
right.
other things that can play into that. There can be old belief systems that you haven't uncovered that are coloring everything you see. And for me, anytime anybody is bringing up issues of uh, fear mongering or predictions or any of that stuff, um, I'm seeing that as a red flag.
Yeah, me too. I started to go down that path early on, and I had to stop that real fast because you can go down some really deep holes going that way, and it's not useful. And the word that keeps coming up for me is discernment. We have to establish our discernment, go inside within, check with our higher self, and develop that sense of discernment that we all so badly need.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it takes time.
It
It's not,
does take time,
you don't
yes.
get that in a day or a week or a month. That takes years of development. And hopefully you've been working on developing discernment in general as a practice in your life before you got on your spiritual path, or if you've been on a spiritual path for a long time, that you've been doing that all along.
Yeah.